When does an empire die?
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a vision.
We're in need of a great debate about the future!
Corruption, distrust of government, division, social class, economics. No, this is not the evening news. This is our movie review. Megalopolis, 2 hours and 18 minutes, and we're going to take at least that long to explain this movie. Hey, I'm Dr. Paul.
I'm Dr. Paul.
And we just got back from Megalopolis.
Isn't anybody gonna help that poor man?
Hush, Harriet. That's a sure way to get him killed.
Explain succinctly to our vast audience and loyal audience what this movie was about.
He has such a way with words.
It's about a guy who wants to build a city. That's about as, and I'm being, tongue in cheek, but also being very serious. Like, that's kind of the plot of the story in a way that people can accept it and wrap their mind around it.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the most confusing films I've ever seen.
I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I understand half of what was going on, what I saw, but I love it.
It was, to me, like someone took Batman or Tim Burton's Batman and, oh man, I just had it and I just lost it. Oh, and 2001: A Space Odyssey, and like smashed them together and then set it on Zack Snyder's planet Krypton.
What Coppola has said about the movie is he's likening the fall of the Roman Empire to what's currently going on in this country. So in terms of division and economics and poverty and distrust and infighting, and really, you see the parallels there. Was it optimistic for you?
I had high thing. My expectations were higher than your expectations. This was a film, if you go back.
Previously on Lost.
I think this could well be the greatest movie ever made by perhaps one of the greatest directors in my lifetime. And the director is Francis Ford Coppola, and the movie is Megalopolis.
He said that, and oops.
Yeah.
Prior to that, I think that your expectations had waned going into this. You read what happened at Cannes Film Festival.
Yes.
I think it finished 14 out of 14 films, I believe.
Yeah.
Don't quote me, but I think that's correct. It was one of the worst performing films, so people did not understand it. You read an article prior to it that was basically
a steaming pile of crap.
Yeah, said, please don't go see this. I thought it had a chance. I did the what to watch. I said, I think this still has a chance to be one of the benchmark films of this year. So I definitely had higher expectations than you did, at least walking into the theater.
Yeah. My history with Coppola is I tend to not like a lot of his movies first time I see it. I did not like Bram Stoker's Dracula first time I saw it. Did not like Apocalypse Now first time I saw it. I didn't even like Godfather Part 2. Now, I was in high school when I saw it. Didn't like it. Loved The Godfather first time. But with like a lot of his films, the more you watch them and the more they sort of settle into the zeitgeist of culture, they become these icons. And going into this one, I predicted this would be the greatest movie ever made. I don't know that I would say that, but I came away from this artistically. Acting is superb. The music, the visuals on this. The
So
editing.
we're in the good then, I'm assuming. We jumped right into the good. He's so excited. It's Christmas morning. I just wanted you guys to be along for the ride while he's along for it.
We always start with the good first.
Yeah. Well, I'm letting them know that we started.
Yeah. I thought that the script, I cared about the characters. I cared about the relationships. It does. It's a lot in there that I don't understand, but by the end of this thing, I'm really like, this is like a church service. I feel optimistic about the country, that we don't have to have the fall. We don't.
So for the message,
yes, I thought the message on that. So yes.
Yeah.
What did you think was good?
I liked it from like the filmmaking perspective. I know that they spent a lot of effort trying to do things with practical effects and less special effects. So I'm all for that. It reminded me a little bit in terms of the effort put into the filmmaking from The Revenant. In Aratu, he wanted only practical lights. He wanted only practical effects. He wanted to shoot long tracking shots, things of that should make it as most as realistic as possible, which is what I got from this. I didn't enjoy the visuals as much as I expected to.
I agree.
But I still thought that they were visually, it was an astounding film to watch. It was an amazing film to watch from a visual perspective. It's the story and that where it loses me a bit, but from an experience, like, it's like the Francis Ford Coppola version of going and watching In a Violent Nature. It's more of an experience than a narrative for me.
Mm-hmm. What did you not like?
You said that you cared about the characters. I found that I just didn't find myself caring or aligning with any of the characters. And maybe that's because it was sort of this crazy, like, not futuristic, but it was a different world. This is obviously like a big city. This is New York. So these are big cities. I don't identify with people, whereas I live in a small southern town. So I just didn't identify with the characters. I didn't care about them. At the end, when we see with the bow and arrow, I was kind of laughing at that. And that's supposed to be like a big pivotal moment. It just felt forced to me. And I don't know that, I think that he wanted to do so much with this movie, he needed to just take another 20 years to figure out how to do it.
I think it was indulgent.
That's a great word for it.
Yes,
overindulgent.
And of course he self-financed this,
which is why he gets a pass.
In the same way that Costner self-financed Horizon, and a lot of people were making the same parallels. They're excessive and indulgent, and a studio could have said, maybe we could get this down to 90 minutes or 100 minutes kind of stuff. Maybe did you need all of what they had in it? There wasn't a whole lot of restraint that Coppola had in this. And remember with The Godfather Part 2, Mario Puzo was the primary author. And so he helped drive the story. In this case, Coppola's driving the story, and it was somewhat of an acid trip. And I've read that he's just been keeping notes forever and ever, and he'll think of something, he'll see something, and it was impressive to him, and he puts it in this Megalopolis diary, and then he throws it all on the screen. So there's a whole lot of that. Is it deep, the stuff that's on there?
I'm sure it is.
Or was it indulgent kind of stuff?
I don't know.
Does it mean anything? On his deathbed with Rosebud, it's going to be...
Maybe.
It was just... it was an acid trip kind of thing. I just made it up. And on all the film tours are trying to say, oh yes, when the moon was taken by the cloud, it signifies that, whatever. And
Rosebud.
Is his sled. It was his sled from when he was a kid.
So I do think some editing of it, and it was a little bit too indulgent.
Yeah, I think that it also comes down to, so who is this movie made for? And you talk about the audiences, and like the message could be an astounding message for everyone in the world to hear. Unfortunately, those aren't the people that are going to sit through this movie. And that's sort of, for me, is like, who is this for? Where you're going to get your money back on this? And I just don't know that it will in terms of a sales perspective.
Let's break this down generationally. And a boomer and millennial kind of stuff. And I know that our audience tends to skew more closely in line with you. Do you think people my age would be more likely to like this, or your age? Does your generation have the patience to sit through this straight?
My generation is older than I think the people that watch this channel that think that I'm in their generation. I think that people think I'm a little bit younger than I actually am. I'm almost 40 years old. Sorry if that blew some people's minds. So I'm a little older, and I think maybe, but I don't know that young people are going to find their way through this one very easily, if at all.
So what about, you think my generation
I
would?
think this is made for older, and as the younger they get, the less likely that they'll like it.
I think my generation will more likely to sit, but I think they will react against it because I think they'll see it through political lens, and I think that's somewhat what Coppola is trying to do. Is you see the division in American politics in this film. You see, I mean, it's part of what the fall of Rome. I mean, there was those dissensions, but it's optimistic, and I think that if there's a moral to the story of what he's trying to say is, can't we all just get along? Can't we all just talk? And together, all people, we will come up with a utopia. I just don't know that people my age, I think people are set in their ways, and politically, you're which side of the spectrum that you are on.
Well, politically speaking, it doesn't matter what side you're on. Whoever, if you're on the right, you're adverse to listening to the left. If you're on the left, you're adverse to listening to the right. And maybe that's pulling from the theme of the story. I felt a little cheapened out by sort of how it solved itself, because you have the oh my gosh, I said his name earlier, Esposito character,
yes,
and then you have the Caesar character, Adam Driver character,
Cicero,
but what they want, the reasons they want something similar, but their reasons for wanting it are different, and coming to terms and finding a middle ground for these two reasons just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to say this without spoiling it for people. So maybe the ending wasn't effective for me, and that's a big part of what you seem.
I walked away optimistic. I thought and it was the whole experience. The trailers that were great. We don't want to get into that, but it was a great movie experience for me. 2 hours and 18. It didn't feel like it was 2 hours and 18 minutes to me. And I've read other people say that.
You're absolutely right. It didn't feel like 2 hours and 18. It felt like 4 hours and 45 minutes.
No. I have one question before we get to the verdict. Okay. Where would you put it? Where would you rank it in Coppola's films? Without
Looking at like his filmography in front of me, it wouldn't be in the top 5, probably.
Really?
I would center it. It'd probably be in the bottom half of his filmography in terms of what I've seen, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad film. He's just got some better films. Like I'm a huge fan of the Redux of Apocalypse Now. I love Bram Stoker's. I love Godfather. So I just don't know that it would be able to jump up very high ahead of some of those.
I would take, I consider the Godfather trilogy one film. It's like Lord of the Rings kind of thing. And I would put it second to that.
I want some of whatever he had this morning. Whatever's in, you're floating around in your ginkgo biloba.
All right. Verdict wise, I'm gonna give it a 9.
Oh snap! I mean, it can't. If it's a 9, it can't be better than Godfather. I give it a 5.5 out of 10.
But that's still high.
It is, and again, maybe, but that's if I'm going to try to say like what I would give this for the standard view, I'd probably give it like a 2 for the standard viewer. 2 out of 10, 2.5 out of 10, 3 out of 10, somewhere around there. Just because I don't know that your journeyman film goer is going to have anything to do with this beyond 5 minutes of what is this?
You mentioned 2001 Space Odyssey, and I remember seeing that and debating and arguing, what does it mean? I don't know that it was indulgent at all, but it's an icon, and I feel the same way about this.
Well, I think, and that's the difference, maybe. That's a good sort of like compare and contrast, is I feel a lot of similar things to Space Odyssey that I do to this film, but I cared about the characters in that. I cared about that film. I highly enjoyed that film the first time I watched it. I wasn't like at odds with themes or understanding. It was more cut and dry, even though it was crazy and over the top. That's why it reminds me of it.
Yeah. I heartily recommend that you go see it, and I heartily recommend you see it on a big screen. We didn't get a chance to see it on IMAX, and I wonder what that
yeah, I was going to say, maybe I don't normally tell people to do that.
Yeah.
Go see it in PDX or IMAX or 3D, but maybe this is worth
Yeah.
worth the extra
I
bucks.
I think we need to support films on the big screen. And I think this is definitely a movie that you don't want to watch on your phone.
Well, also obviously because he self-financed this too, so
He
any
did.
money you put back towards this is absolutely going to make a difference.
Yeah, he believed in it. It's flawed, but I believe that just like most of his films, over time, people are going to look back at this and say, this movie really is more profound.
I don't know if it'll be that this is the greatest movie ever made,
Right.
but I do know that the evolution of this film's sort of like perception is nowhere near done. I said it's done. It's a film that's finished being made, but it's a cake that's not done being baked. I think we will find out more about how people feel about this film in 5-10 years.
Well, 20 years from now, when I'm gone, and you watch
Or you're
this
a head in
movie,
a jar.
you're gonna a tear is gonna roll down your little eyes. As, I'm with you, Dad. I believe now.
Dad, why are you crying? Well,
Every
was the
time
worst movie I've
Coppola
ever
makes
seen.
a movie, an angel gets its wings.
no, I don't think that that's the case.
We're gonna see you at the movies.
Kill